Welcome back to the Good Green Home Show. Today's guest is Joel Karsten. He's one of my favorite gardening experts. He's the guy who invented straw bale gardening, and that is one super cool gardening technique. Rich,
Good morning, Shauna.
what do you think?
Good morning, Joel. I'm very intrigued because I don't know anything about this subject, so I'm pretty excited to learn, just like the viewers and listeners are going to get to learn. So, hey,
Joel, tell us
great.
how on earth did you get started with straw bale gardening?
Well, I'll tell you, Shauna, everybody's heard the term necessity is the mother of all invention. That's sort of what happened in my case. About 21 years ago, I bought my first house, and discovered that I had very little topsoil, about an inch of actual productive topsoil. And as a gardener, of course, having grown up on a farm as well, I knew that an inch of topsoil, you're not going to grow much for vegetables.
No.
It's not going to be very productive. And unfortunately, at the same time, I just graduated college, and I bought this house. I didn't have money to build raised beds, which is what normal gardeners would do, build some raised beds and put in a vegetable garden. But I did remember when I was a kid on the dairy farm how we used to have bales of straw that would lay next to the barn when they'd have a broken string. And throughout the summer, that bale of straw would start to decompose, and great big thistles would grow out of those bales of straw.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I knew what was happening inside of those bales. It was decomposing. So with no money, but access to straw bales, I decided I would try and grow some vegetables out of decomposing bales of straw. And that's sort of how it started, over the years, about 15 years of trying different things and experimenting with different crops. I perfected the method, and at that point I wrote my first book about the subject. So,
Well, Joel, do you add any soil to the straw bales, or are you just planting right into them? How does this work?
well, you don't add soil. The straw becomes the soil.
Okay.
Okay, so here's what we do. We're going to condition the bales for a period of about 12 to 18 days, depending on if you're using lawn fertilizer as your nitrogen source or you're using an organic source. If you're using an organic source of nitrogen, like blood meal, it's going to take a little bit longer. But you're going to add some fertilizer, and you're going to add water to those bales. And what that's really doing inside the bale is it's activating the microbes, the bacteria that do the work of decomposing. And it's going to that bacteria is going to decompose the straw. That straw becomes soil, and that's what your plants grow out of.
So you said 18 days before you plan to plant, you need to condition that straw bale.
Exactly. You
Okay.
need to start adding your nitrogen source and water. And essentially what you're doing is you're speeding up Mother Nature's natural process. Mother Nature on her own will decompose. Anything that's ever been alive eventually decomposes and becomes soil. And all we're doing is speeding up that process by adding nitrogen, which is what bacteria typically eat, in order to rapidly colonize those bacteria, grow the bacteria inside that bale. As soon as that bale is colonized with bacteria, they begin to consume the straw and turn carbon essentially into soil.
So, what about weeds and undesirable plants growing or grass getting into there? How do you prevent that?
Well, as long as you start with a clean bale of straw, sometimes you'll get straw bales that'll have a few leftover oats or wheat seeds left in them.
Oh, yeah.
In those cases, you might get a few sprouts that'll come out early on in the process. Eventually, they dry up and fall off anyway, so you could just leave them.
Well, this has been a wonderful segment. I know
Absolutely.
you've learned something, Rich.
I learned a lot, and now I don't know what to think. I'm probably going to be up all night wondering, am I ever going to sell another bag of potting mix again?
Now you know why the last year straw bales have been leaving your place like lightning.
They have been.
Yeah, it's all
Absolutely.
Joel's fault. Thank you, Joel.
Thanks, Joel.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, you guys. Good luck.
Absolutely. You have a great day, and thanks again for coming. I can't wait to have you back another time.
Thanks,
You
Joel.
bet. I'd be happy to do it, Shauna. Thanks
All
a
right,
lot.
take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, Rich from Alsop Home and Nursery in St. John here to remind you to think outside the box store and shop at your locally owned Best of the Northwest Indiana Region Garden Center.
Alsop Home and Nursery, the best of every season.
In Frankfort on LaGrange Road and St. John on Route 41. See their weekly circular at alsopnursery.com.